Hello and welcome to another jungle video, and in this one we are once again going to be testing your decision making. However, I just made a video on aggressive invading, snowballing leads. What happens though if you are in the opposite situation? What happens if you are being invaded? What happens if the game state is just negative and you're not able to do everything you need to do? And no, it's really not always a team thing. Sometimes it is a team thing, but most of the time junglers are missing those opportunities to take control. You will miss those cues that allow them to avoid being behind and needing to use these strategies in the first place. But hopefully this video will quiz your own knowledge on not only how to get back into games, but also how to avoid them. All of that and more coming up after a message from Rost.
Hello, do you remember when Rost was an announcer for League? Rost remembers. Thankfully, now you can have custom announcer packs courtesy of Apollo. Apollo is a safe-to-use app that reads what is happening in-game and plays specific audio for the key moments, like when you steal Baron, or don't.
あなたはバロンナショーを殺したわ。
You can choose to hear your favorite streamers, YouTubers. You could even use music. Or Apollo's own characters from their cyberpunk world of Republic. All of these choices, such as Spectre and Nico from the Republic, will replace the default announcer within League. All of this is available from the Apollo store for free and for purchase. Additionally, Apollo allows you to earn coins within the app to spend on even more than you could ever want, along with claiming your free daily rewards. The more you use it, the more voices you can hear in your head. My limit was 2, but to be fair, Kayn is really irritating, and he sounds and looks like a 14-year-old. Along with Forge to create your own announcer packs. Never let your bot lane dying sound depressing again. Click the link below to ascend your announcer with Apollo and the Republic.
I must introduce both games by saying that there are two basic philosophies for how you can get back into games when things aren't going your way. One is that sometimes you can take objectives while being behind in order to come back by using big brain pathing, and sometimes you have to give up objectives in order to play the long con, and that's the second one. And links to both match histories will be in the description below so you can guess the elos while going through this video and then go have a look to see how the games actually transpired. Right, for the first game we have Kayn vs Lee Sin. Now obviously Kayn's enjoy doing 5 camp, 6 camp clears, mostly 6 camp by 315 if your technique is good, and Lee Sin can really do whatever he wants. However, in order to get behind, something has to go wrong, so let's stop this clear on the Raptors to ask you, should you go ahead and maybe gank mid lane here, or should you continue on your 6 camp? This is of course also presuming you recognize that Lee Sin got a leash on the bottom side and will be pathing top side also. No, it is not. We have a Ziggs who is just gonna be dinging level 3. We have a LeBlanc against us, and all we have is a 90% slow and a conditional skill shot from our mid laner. Now, I had an example in coaching that's on the Patreon. I also had an example in the Diana video not too long ago about what happens when you go for a gank if the enemy jungler is going to be in the area. It can create a lot of problems for you if things don't go right. In both of those videos, it did go right. But in this game it won't because Lee Sin is pathing upside. If he sees a level 3 gank on a LeBlanc by Ziggs and a Kayn, he's just gonna stop farming and rotate, at least if he's a good jungler. What this does is cost you your flash. Now everyone knows your timers. You did a full red side clear on the bottom side, you're level 3, you have to go to your blue. Lee Sin and any aggressive jungler is going to invade you. Fortunately, the Kayn wins a smite battle. What if you don't though? Kinda sucks. But as he floats away from the Lee Sin because he doesn't have mid lane prio and reflects deeply on his pathing choices, what would you do now that Lee Sin is in your jungle? Do we fight over the crab that's now in the river? Do we simply try and do our grump and kite it up? Or do we simply go back to base and try and get the bottom side crab? Well, fortunately for Kayn here, he does have top lane prio, which means if we do engage in a battle of wills, a battle of legends, and a battle of jungle diff over who gets the first crab, because that's how it works, right? We should have Darius able to rotate. However, the mid lane will be the flank, so you really need to play by ear if you choose to go for this crab. I won't fault you for trying to simply take your grump and your wolves. What you can do there is basically leave your Darius to fend for himself and get the bottom lane crab, or position yourself really nicely for a Lee Sin counter gank should he gank top lane after doing the crab, which is most likely. Now, things go very well. They could have gone very badly. You have to really pay attention to what lanes are moving, and Ziggs did push the LeBlanc back so she didn't rotate either. Lee Sin dies, he burns his flash, we are able to get a crab. Once Lee Sin respawns, which direction will he go next? Well, because he died with 12 CS and no red buff, we know that his Raptors red and Krugs are available. Most junglers in this phase will not be able to tone that down, it's too much of an attraction. You could simply go and double scuttle him and counter jungle him, that is a possibility, but if you have a Jace topside with low resources and a Darius that just helped you win a scuttle fight, I think he deserves a gank. It also helps you because if Lee Sin goes to the bottom scuttle and ganks your bottom lane, you will very easily have access over his entire topside red portion and be able to abuse the Jace once more. Now after the gank, I think we do need to 100% help push. It gives us more experience. The Darius doesn't have TP, the Jace doesn't have TP, and if he's kinda low, which he is, then the Lee Sin will capitalize and get a cleanup kill, and that's not what we want. Now going back to base here is the good idea regardless. Where do you go, top or bottom? Yes, 100% bottom, because if Lee Sin goes to his topside camps and kills a Darius, which you're going to see he does, it means we get a free crab. It also means that if he did take that crab, it's possible that he might be trying to counter jungle our second spawn Krugs and Raptors, and those are high value camps for us, so we want to be able to defend it. The second spawn camps are always more valuable than the first spawn camps, and you can always sequence to reset everything and normalize it. Now as soon as you see Lee Sin, what should be your initial reaction? Do I simply go to my Krugs, or do I go to the crab? Yes, we go to the crab. You know why? Because we saw the Ezra was low and going back to base when we were in base. We can also tell that the Lee Sin definitely 1000% did not go bottom crab straight to red, which means the addition of 2 camps to a CS total means he simply went to those topside camps and then killed Darius. That also means after the scuttle, we can try and counter jungle his second spawn Grump. Very high value counter jungling. Our bottom lane has reset with us. If Sir Thomas Kench does cut you off, you can always fall back to your Raptors and Krugs and be in the exact same situation that the Kayn is right now, just with the added benefit of being able to maybe counter jungle that Grump. It also sets up the Raptors and Krugs in a much more natural respawn timer. However, we are on the Raptors, so let me ask you, do you continue your sequencing to Wolves and Grump? Do you perhaps look for a mid lane gank? Do we go bottom lane for a gank? Or do we reset? Personally, I'm looking to sequence upside if I know the enemy jungler isn't around, or I'm looking to go and try and do something on the bottom side. You could look to seek the dragon, and that's what the Kayn's going to do. The problem is, yes, your bottom lane has prio, but you know Lee Sin after ganking Darius on the top side took his topside camps, you know he's going to be in the area, and you know your bottom lane is pushing. You also know that your Ziggs has no mana and needs to reset, he doesn't have TP either. So if a brawl happens over this dragon, which it does, LeBlanc will rotate first, it will be a 4v3, and guess what? Yes, you can say, you know what, it's worth it, I got orbs, which is the Kayn mentality, but it's not really great for the state of the game because your red buff is going to be spawning. And as you can see, chaos unfolds and Lee Sin comes out of it 3-1-1, and yes, we do get the dragon, but it's not really worth it at this stage. Respawn out of base, do we go top side, do we go bottom side? Now considering you're a little bit behind here on experience and map control, you could decide, you know what, I'm gonna go fight over my red buff, and you have to consider what is the atomization advantage. You've technically reset, although against your will, which means you've spent more gold than the Lee Sin. But some champions are just better early than others, and Kayn is only but half a champion. You are not yet Rast, you are not yet Shadow Assassin. I like the concept here of simply doing the Wolves and in theory the Grump, although Darius stole it, that's a separate point, won't normally happen. You can easily then flex into some counter jungling, diving the top lane Jace with your ult, getting some orbs. You can look for that equal and opposite play. The problem is by going to the red with the ADCs fighting each other 1v1 on the bottom lane, is that you're banking on the Ziggs' ult, negating the fact that LeBlanc rotates her entire champion. And now you die. So you can see being behind in tempo, being behind in resources and not really controlling the game isn't necessarily always laner's fault, it's a jungler's inability to look at the lanes and make the right play based on their own matchups as well. And now the problem is, out of base you have no choice but to go to the bottom side. Your Grump was stolen, your blue's gonna be up, Lee Sin ran across mid lane, he gets to regenerate by smiting camps, you have to do your Krugs and Raptors, and the Lee Sin gets to roam around with the support, ganking and taking over. Now here's the thing, when you find yourself in this situation, yes, it's kind of your fault and also, you know, coin flipping the situation, what we can do is still keep objective control. The first dragon was a great example. After a nice rotation by our team, we pick up a cheeky assist on the Lee Sin, he will have to respawn in a second. We need to try and avoid him while still maintaining some kind of parity in the game state. So do you do your blue side or do you head to the Herald? That's right, we head to the Herald because we know Lee Sin is going from base to his blue side. There's no ways he's going to the red side. No red buff up yet, no Raptor camp. But he will have a full blue quadrant of camps and we can swap the map and secure the objective. But once that is complete, where do you go next? Do you go back into your jungle, secure your blue side camps, give yourself a pat on the back and say, you know what, this isn't so bad? Do we go straight to the top lane and show Jace what a big Herald we have? Or do we go counter jungling, investigating into his red side? I think it is painfully obvious that the Lee Sin is on the blue side. He also probably assumes, and rightly so, that the Kayn's gonna take his red buff right after the Herald. That makes sense. Buy the time for the ult being down by counter jungling and getting juiced, and then look to dive the Jace and kill him and use the Herald. Lee Sin is on the bottom side of the map, gets another kill, can easily counter jungle, and what is Kayn doing? His own camps. So when you're behind, as I said, we need to not miss the opportunities to make an equal and opposite play while counter jungling and using Herald for a super gold income that not only benefits you, it also benefits your top laner. You want to make the comeback, you want to make the game in a good state for your team again, you have to make plays where the enemy jungler is not. And in this case, we knew the Lee Sin was bottom side. We had all the Qs necessary to steal his camps, to dive the top laner, to give ourselves a lot of gold, and then have two people capable of carrying the game. And now you can cut the Lee Sin off wherever he goes and make the plays necessary to actually carry out your lead. The problem is he didn't do that and reacted to the Lee Sin being bottom lane instead of predicting it, and then, dies to the Jace under the tower. And now a couple general tips on playing from behind. Please avoid running into enemy controlled areas, even for an objective. You have to try and offset the pressure instead of trying to actually match it. In this case, despite our int on the top side, we know Lee Sin has control of our red side jungle now. We know that they took the tower first, which means the enemy bot lane will rotate, which means we know that they will have direct control over the dragon. So there's no point even going there. We can still head to the top side, use our Herald, get a lot of gold, and offset their play. If you don't do that, you're gonna die like this Kayn. And the thing is now, because the tower on the bottom side is dead, the dragon has taken, all your camps are gone, and you died, the only place for you to go next is top lane. The problem is, Lee Sin can now match you. The game state is elevated. It's a good rotation by the Kayn to pick up something, but the mid game is theirs to control and you have to chill macro-wise. And fortunately, we'll speed through the second game with a couple crucial questions that will help you deal with this situation. But before we do that, make sure you have a good first clear. Your mechanics need to be on point. This is a slow clear for Kayn, and because of this, he is not able to get the crab, he's not able to be in a position to counter gank the Lee Sin early, and already his laners are behind, and he is in a rough situation. Now as always, if you see the enemy jungler go off in the other direction, your laners are dead, you have no camps, the enemy laner is trying to push to deny, feel free to wait a few seconds and then kill them. So what do you do in this situation? Do you go back to base or do you do something else? And the something else can be whatever you think. Yeah, we go back to base. The gold amount isn't great, but it's better than nothing. You will get a small itemization spike, and if the enemy jungler stays out, which the Lee Sin will look to do, you can easily make an audible decision for yourself out of base. Do I simply go to my Krugs Raptors and look to gank mid lane? Or if I do have prior in the mid lane and top lane, maybe I can fight over the crab, but I have the longsword advantage. But you can tell the Lee Sin is a good jungler and was thinking directly about this. He goes back to base himself, knowing he has enough for Iron Spike Whip. He can gank top lane, get prio, and get the crab. Because the Kayn didn't reset, he is waffling all the way to the top side, he doesn't know what to do, and to be honest, there's nothing he can do. The game state is just kinda simply unfortunate. Bot lane died to the Lee Sin, top lane died to the Lee Sin, and he got double scuttled. Honestly, it's his fault. But he clears his topside camps and goes back to base. We fast forward a little bit, we see the Lee Sin on the Raptors, and now we see him walk into a bush and the Kayn positions himself to counter gank. Is this a good counter gank? Yes, in principle, I think we can do this, but no, because Lee Sin is level 6 and it showed he was level 6 on the Raptors. Kayn does not have the ult to match, and even though he does have the same itemization, his bot is in base, it's a Galio mid, and there is a Lux Ezreal in the bottom lane for the Lee Sin. The downside is huge. And as you can see, despite Lee Sin giving him a freebie, the downside was confirmed as huge. And the problem with that decision here is as follows. Where do you go when you respawn? Top or bot? Yeah, you have to go top. You've got no blue side camps. The Lee Sin's second red has spawned. As such, because the Kayn has to go to his red side now, Lee Sin can take his personal red and also secure an objective. Kayn will have to now give up objectives, give up everything, and look to just make safer plays. But how do you get fed now? How do you negate the Lee Sin lead? We simply swap sides of the map, just like I talked about in the previous game. If he goes top, you go bottom. Avoid him, try and get objectives, try and get one lane ahead if possible. You see, the Lee Sin assumed that Kayn would go directly from red to the Herald. If he did that, he would have died because his lanes are losing and he cannot solo it. The risk is too high if he gets collapsed upon. So we sequence down and we go bot side knowing that the Lee Sin will try to contest it and will most likely secure it. Use that to your advantage. Dive bot lane, get kills, but once that's done, what's your next play? To stay in counter jungle, to go back to base, or to simply fall back down to your blue side? We know Lee Sin's top side, we know he's getting that Herald. Take the outermost camps of interest to you, in this case his ones. You get a lot of golden experience back, And now instead of going back to base after that, you stay and you take your blue side camps as well. Not only did you get some kills on their bottom lane to get yours ahead, you also stole his camps, secured your camps, and denied him counter jungling. This means he has literally nothing on the bottom side of the map to do whatsoever, and he will be forced to go top side, and you can track that. And that's the crucial aspect about being behind. When you struggle to track, use whatever you have to your advantage and manipulate him. You are in control from the shadows, he just doesn't know it. And now as you begin to transition from the early game to the mid game, very important to note, you're simply going to farm your camps, sequence side to side, you're not going into the river, you're not venturing where there is no vision, you're putting control wards and trinkets in the entrance of your jungles, and whenever you see enemy teams moving, grouping, and looking to gank and make picks, with that vision you place down, you hover. You continuously take your camps and hover. If something happens, you can rotate. If it looks good, engage. If it doesn't, carry on farming. Just don't go crazy and gank a lane and die. If you can get a pick, do it. If someone overstays and they're low, kill them. Side to side in your jungle, taking whatever morsels they give to you. And then Kayn does that to perfection. What would you do about this game state though as we head into the mid game? Just think while you watch him floating. What do you think is on your mind here? Are you getting impatient? Are you looking for dives? Do you really want those towers? Maybe there's a dragon you need to secure? No, the best advice to you is relax and wait for them to get impatient. Wait for them to tilt into you by overcommitting to a play. And because you were doing what I just said for 2-3 minutes, in addition to the opposite plays that the Kayn did earlier, guess what? You will win that fight when they overcommit. You are Kayn, and now because you did that, you can shove waves, counter jungle, take your own camps as well, and 9 times out of 10 you will find yourself with a 2-level lead. For more and specific macro tips in closing, I just did a Kayn gameplay on my gameplay channel. I will link that below. We'll talk very greatly about what to do in these kinds of situations on a bit more of an intricate level. But when you're behind, if you play smart, you play with your head, you answer these decisions correctly, whether it's, taking objectives as a counter or letting him take it and using that against him by actually infusing yourself with enough golden experience that you can carry those fights. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and learned something. Please do leave a like, share, and comment if you did. Don't forget to let me know what topics you might want a decision-making test for next. Remember to always question how you take care of your beards. It should be done properly. And as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.